It's the early morning of the 5th of November 2024. I'm Gary Waterman, former UK Police Constable. I'm on part 3 now of the document in relation to the adrenochrome Portsmouth fire in Hampshire. I just want to explain something because I didn't explain it very well at the beginning. So a few months ago I had what appeared to be a leaked letter in relation to adrenochrome. So it was a German letter where somebody stated they had acquired USB sticks, and on those sticks was a table of children's names, including their ages between 6 and 12, what blood type they were, whether they had committed suicide, where they were being detained. It had the value of the blood, and it also had order forms as well, including various locations in the UK. But more importantly to me in the research, because obviously I had to take that with a pinch of salt, there was a company name on the top left-hand corner and throughout the document called CYM Limited. And the research from that linked back into everything I've been exposing, back into the international government fraud, and in fact back in towards to Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, where this all started for me and where I acquired forged bank documents. I publicised some of that information. I also submitted a police report. So I started publicising the information on the 4th of July 2024. On the 5th of July 2024, I submitted a report online with a reference number, which generated a reference number to Dorset Police, explaining that I'd found the evidence linking to the adrenochrome and how concerned I was for the safety of thousands of children. And within 48 hours, if not closer to 24 hours, there was a huge fire in Hampshire, and it blocked the road, the smoke from that fire. Somebody else had informed me about it, and it was at a waste recycling centre. On researching through Companies House, that waste recycling centre, it went back into everything I had just been exposing, including links back into the adrenochrome. Okay, so it was clearly very significant and worrying, and I suspect it was an attempt to destroy evidence due to the original release of the evidence and the information that I had published. On the 12th of July 2024, I did a second report to the police saying, look, I suspect that you and the government are involved in trying to destroy evidence here, and my whole YouTube account was removed that very same day. All right, so what we're looking at here now is the document with the evidence leading from that fire in Hampshire. Okay, so we've already done 2 parts. Now we're on page 40. I've just gone back a page. So we're looking at Aberdeen Asset Management pooled pensions. So they're pooling pensions in relation to this. And we did look at the previous names. The same director is linked to JHSW Limited, is what it's now registered as, and it's an active company at the time of this. But look at the incorporation name and the previous names. J. Henry Schroeder. Okay, Schroeder Company. And you can see the last time they changed their name on the top right there within the red box was January 2001, the same year as the World Trade Center disaster. And they removed Schroeder, the word Schroeder, from the company name and just put it as JHSW Limited. Into the previous company we were looking at in the last part of the videos, we have a Rosemary Morgan. Whether there's a somehow connection to JP Morgan, I don't know, but I thought that was quite relevant. They resigned in February 2022 as I was making inquiries within my company regarding the accounts. On the right-hand side, you can see that Rosemary is linked to Nippon Active Value Fund PLC. Well, Nippon has already featured in my research, and you can see it links to, on the left here, the Nicola Bulley research that I've done, linking to Allen and Overy and One Change. And I do, urge you to go and look at the Nicola Bulley research document. This is very important because around the time of her death, if you don't know who she is, she was a lady that went missing in early February 2023 whilst walking her dog along the river in Lancashire. Her body was found 3 weeks later in the river. But her husband used to work for BAE Systems. At the time of her death, BAE Systems and Thales, another company, along with some others, weapon companies, were developing a directed energy weapon that you can now look at called Dragonfire. The police for Lancashire that was investigating Nicola Bulley's death link in through, there's a police associated company that links in with the council. They are connected to Thales, the same company that was creating the directed energy weapon around the time of Nicola Bulley's death. The diver, Peter Faulding, or the searcher, shall we say, that was looking for Nicola Bulley in the river, changed his story massively. Okay, initially he was saying he searched the river, she's not there. After I publicised evidence in relation to Expound Manor Freehold Limited and the links to Swifting Corporations and Jordans, there was another publication in the news by Peter Faulding, said he had actually found what he believed to be Nicola, and he'd told the police, and they wanted to go and check and said it wasn't her. Peter Faulding, Companies House, shows that his company's also linked to the fraud. The very same companies. Okay. So I suspect she found out about a depopulation plan by the governments to harm people and remove potentially mass numbers of the public, of the people using radiation through the mobile communication systems, because the 5G and mobile communication system research that I have conducted shows they are linked straight back into the fraud, but also there are significant links back into BAE Systems and Thales, the same directed energy weapons companies. Okay, so I suspect that the masts are a weapon. There's military grade companies already linked to a mast. I've gone and investigated a mast. You can go and look at my document. I'm going to get in my file. They've recently hacked it, and so I've got to re-put some of the documents in there. But a mast in Fort William in Scotland links back into all of this from the companies that's on the equipment around that mast, and it links back into military grade companies, back into the child trafficking, and into the threat that I think we are seeing from these people. And evidence does suggest from my Julian Assange research that we are potentially looking at a doomsday cult that has taken over our world. Anyway, going back to this, we've got this same director, Rosemary, is linked to JP Morgan Indian Investment Trust PLC. Remember, JP Morgan is very significant and relevant into all of this, because Expound Manor Freehold Limited has connections to the Fleming family, and you can go and look at this. Expound Manor Freehold Limited, type that into Companies House, go into the people record, you'll see my name, Gary Waterman, you'll see Deborah Fleming. Deborah Fleming was a former NHS Chief Executive Officer in charge of £700 million budget and 10,000 staff. Her former husband, according to the evidence, is a former Dorset police officer, and they were leaked information by Dorset police after already having been named as prime suspects. Dorset police then provided 2 emails confirming they were allowing forged bank documents to be produced by the banks and used in circulation. This was escalated to the Home Office, the Serious Fraud Office, the Independent Office for Police Conduct. I later found out evidence connecting the heads of those organisations and top politicians into this international government fraud and all of the same companies that we're talking about here. It's one huge, massive conspiracy against the masses, and we are now in serious danger from this, unfortunately. But we can completely change this, and I'm calling for an international strike, which I think is now urgent. A sustained international strike starting this Friday. I believe that is urgently required, to use that as leverage to change the trajectory of humanity before it is too late, into a truthful, transparent financial system. Anyway, this same director is linked to Landau Forte Charitable Trust. Now, the Freemasons are heavily behind all of this. There's so much evidence through my documents that there's Freemason companies, and that there's a satanic Luciferian element at the top of this, which again ties in with the Albert Pike letter and the World War III situation we are seeing. Now, Lindau, I believe, is a German name. I could be wrong, but we'll see some German connections in a minute. So we're starting to get a German connection. Next company that's linked to that director, the London Library Pension Trustee Limited Company. So another pension company. Back in within Schroeder, another director there, Timothy Philpott, links to, here we go, Dutch Private Asset Management Limited, so a German company. And the same director, importantly, links to a company in Bournemouth called Liverpool Victoria Trustees Limited. You can see on the bottom right there, Bournemouth. In fact, I know the building very well. I used to work right near it in Bournemouth Town Centre as a police officer. And this all explains why the royal family are so heavily connected to the JP Morgan or to the Flemings. And I actually saw, and I'm sorry if I've mentioned this a few times in these videos, on a night out with my police colleagues, Prince William was dancing in a club. I also, when I was policing an event with Prince Charles, he landed in a helicopter. One of my police colleagues got in the helicopter and had a ride. Unbelievable. It all makes sense now. They were really closely connected to the police in Dorset, and because of the Flemings. So we've now got a Chemical Industry Association Limited Company. This is very important because there's another element of their targeting humanity. You may not be aware, but last year, 2023, 17 out of 18, I think it was, water companies were found with forever chemicals within the water supply. Okay, you can go and type that in. You can see the article, the news article. I've featured that on my water treatment document. You can go and look at in my public document file, where there was also further evidence linking to a chemical, again, a German chemical company going into water treatment centres, and that German chemical company links back into Export Manor Freehold Limited and the international government fraud. It's unreal. They've literally centralised everything so that they can depopulate and control the masses and defraud them and exploit them and target the children specifically. So I urge you all, again, join this strike. This chemical company links to the fraud via Linklaters and Paynes on the right, on the bottom there. Also, this is incredibly important. Remember, the pensions, the vaccines are a massive part of this conspiracy. And here we are, the same director links to AstraZeneca Pensions Trustees Limited. So looking at AstraZeneca Pensions, we can see that they were started in 1993 on the bottom right there and changed their name the same time as the World Trade Center disaster and haven't changed their name since. Okay, very important. It all ties in with the World Trade Center disaster. We've also got on the top of the document here 9 Cheapside. That address features throughout the fraud. We've also got Allen and Overy, which features throughout the fraud and also links back into the Nicola Bulley case and the international government fraud. On the bottom of one of the pages of the incorporation document, we have pension companies, multiple pension companies here, ICI. The same director is linked to another AstraZeneca company, AstraZeneca Employee Share Trust Limited on the right there, and also AstraZeneca PLC. It doesn't mention it or link to this director, but you'll see from the other documents that I've done that AstraZeneca UK actually was started on the incorporation document with Swift Incorporations and Jordan's, the very same 2 companies that started Export Manor Freehold Limited, where I acquired the forged bank documents and where they removed me for refusing to file our accounts with those forged documents. On the right here, you can see ICI Pensions Trustees and Imperial Chemical Industries Limited. Back into Schroeder, this is incredibly important, this director, so we're going, still looking in the same company, okay? We're not far away, we're just going back in, looking at another director and going into their companies, and you can scroll along and see all of their companies, and they are linked to, Nicholas Smith is linked to CAPB Limited. This is an incredibly important company. It features throughout the fraud. It goes to an address here, correspondence address, registered address here, Tavistock House, South, Tavistock Square. It features throughout very significant parts of my research into this fraud and very critical subjects. And on the bottom of the overview, you will see that it was originally called Robert Fleming and Co. Limited, back into the Fleming family. And if you look at Export Manor Freehold Limited, go and type in Export Manor Freehold Limited. Look on Companies House, you'll see my name, Gary Waterman. I was kicked off of the company on the 1st of July 2023, and someone from the Fleming family who had called the meeting to remove me as a director came in on that same date, and the acting chairman, who had resigned in July 2022. When I wanted to look at the bank documents, he resigned. I became the acting chairman. He was then brought back in as a director again on that date. And importantly, look at when this company changed its company name. So you can see Robert Fleming started, Robert Fleming and Co. Limited started in 1932. When was the Faroan, and we're going to come to this in a minute, the Faroan movement was the 1920s and 30s. Okay, that's been detailed in my other documents, and we're going to come on to that in a minute. But also, look when it changed its name, 23rd of July 2001. That's the same month that Larry Silverstein purchased the lease for the World Trade Center building. It's the only time that the lease has ever changed hands in the 31 years history of that building. By chance, he was not in the building. In his own words, he basically would normally have breakfast in there. He had some sort of emergency, so he couldn't be there for breakfast, so he survived the attack. He later went on to receive a government grant from the Liberty Funds, which then links back into the National Council for Civil Liberties, who had an affiliation to the Paedophile Information Exchange. That's our own government members, okay, and they were headed under the Liberty Funds group. There's a document going from a company name related to them, both to Larry Silverstein via Silverstein Real Estates and via the National Council for Civil Liberties, and that is on Westco Nominees Limited. Go and look at that company, Westco Nominees Limited. Go and look at the incorporation document. You'll see the governments have removed that company name. Major fraud to try and hide the accountability and liability, making that link, to link it all together illegally. Massive international government fraud. So here we are, that we have that Fleming connection. Very importantly now, going into Schroeder, we also have this, the Earl of Cromer. There's only 2 times I've ever seen this, and they are both around drugs, apparent drugs-related companies. The 2 times that I have not seen a name as a director, only their position. Okay, I've never seen that other than around the drugs-associated areas of my research that I've just stumbled across. And this is very important because I have reviewed around 5,500 companies, I want to say, and that's only 2 times. Okay, only 2 times that's happened, and there's over 5 million companies registered with Companies House. So going into the Earl of Cromer, you can see on the right there that you have Beijing Herbal Products Limited, Herbal Products, and they on the left you can see were started with Swift Incorporations and Jordan's. The same director is linked to Shanghai Herbal Products Limited. You can see on the left here that company was started by Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's. On the right you can see the same director is linked to Canton Herbal Products Limited. On the left you can see that they are also incorporated with Swift Incorporations and Jordan's Limited. Remember, they're the same 2 companies that started Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, and they are fraudulent. Jordan's Limited, if you go and look at that, now trading as Vistra Limited, or it was. Look at the incorporation document. It's got Hammerplag Limited. It's not been registered on the overview. Therefore, the incorporation document has never been registered. Major fraud, everybody. The company should never have been trading, and the illegality continues through the documents. So none of these companies with Jordan's Limited on their incorporation documents should ever have been allowed to trade, and the government would have known that. Absolutely. On the right here, you have, we're looking into Beijing Herbal Products Limited. And you can see there's 10 officers, 7 resigned. And if you go into the people records and look at Adrian Bolf, you'll see a banking connection, RBS Consulting Limited. I suspect that's Royal Bank of Scotland. Royal Bank of Scotland have featured throughout the fraud massively before, and they do link to Lloyd's Banking Group. Okay, this is very important. Also, that same director links to a company called Limitless Being Limited. Limitless Being. Anyone seen the film Limitless? It's about drugs, isn't it? Okay, Limitless. Also on the right there, you can see Chartwell Oil Services, oil company. And on the left here, this is very important, Egypt for You Limited. In fact, this is so important, I need to emphasize this a bit more. So the evidence is now appearing to suggest that what we have is an evil system that originated from ancient Egyptian pharaohs who appear to have moved to Switzerland, where Davos is, where in Switzerland is where the World Economic Forum hold their meetings. It's also where the Hadron Collider is based, where they're trying to create the God particle. It's where the World Health Organization is based, I believe, from information I have. And it's a neutral country, isn't it, Switzerland? And the evidence I have suggests that these pharaohs have infiltrated in a massive way the Jewish religion to make it appear as though the Jews are behind all of this evil. But they've dropped themselves in it, because on at least, well, there's two connections at least on the incorporation documents where there's a link to the Jewish company on the incorporation document to the Charles Darwin Trust. Well, that goes against the Jewish belief, doesn't it? Because that is about the theory of evolution. So why would Jewish people have a legal and financial connection to the theory of evolution? It does not make sense at all. On that same document, there's also a link to the Madeleine McCann case, to the NHS, and you'll see connections to the Madeleine McCann case and Lucy Letby in one of my next documents that I'm going to do a video on, hopefully, if we have time, with everything that's going on. And I do urge everybody to know that we are running out of time. I'm still incredibly hopeful, and I think we're going to resolve this, because these people need to turn this around. Otherwise, they're an eternal risk. But I am calling for an international strike by everyone. And hopefully everyone sees how important this is from what I'm showing you. This Friday, the 8th of November, international strike from everybody working, a sustained strike to compel certain measures. And I've emailed 650 members of parliament with this, the FBI, NATO, World Health Organization, World Economic Forum. I've done a report to Dorset Police. You can look at these emails and these reports telling them about this proposed strike to bring in proposed measures now essential, which includes a transparent taxation at source, so that people can log on and see a government account and see the collective tax contributions coming in and referenced expenditure from them, as well as being able to view nations' available funds in a pot. And I believe there needs to be a fluctuating taxation system to maintain that pot for any eventualities. We may well determine from doing this that hardly any tax is even required to maintain society. I think that needs to be the initial transition to change the trajectory of humanity, as well as the full implementation of verification of all company incorporations. I think my evidence is clearly showing we need real names to be checked of people and addresses, so that they can't be involved in criminal activity. It is absolutely essential now. In fact, there's 10, I believe 10 or there's 11 measures that I've put in place in my document, and I'm giving them, they haven't responded so far, so I'm giving them until as close to the 8th of November as we can. Otherwise, I urge everyone, whilst we still can, international strike for the sake of our children. Please get behind this, okay? So Egypt for You Limited, this is very important. There is no other company name with any other country in it around this research, okay? Nothing like that. It's just Egypt for You. No other countries saying for you, no other countries specifically mentioned by themselves like this. So this is very significant. Let's have a look at Egypt for You, but I'm going to switch to the other document. So first of all, it was incorporated in 2001, the same year as the World Trade Center disaster. And on the right there, on the left actually, you can see that it changed its name in 2009. So it was called UK Dynamics Limited. So we've got a UK and Egypt link on the company names. And you can see on the right there, it's fraudulent. It's Swift Incorporations and Jordan's Limited again. Now remember, we looked at the Cromer, Earl of Cromer. We're just a couple of pages back, so very closely linked to this. So we're going to have a look at the Earl of Cromer now. And the research says this after I've looked into it. And it says, Evelyn Rowland Esmond Baring, 4th Earl of Cromer, born 3rd June 1946, styled Viscount Errington from 1953 to 1991, is a British peer and businessman. He was managing director of Inch Cape, in brackets China Limited, and a director of Schroeder Asia Pacific Fund PLC that we've already looked at. As Earl of Cromer, he was a member of the House of Lords from 1991 to 1999, 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster. In 1991, sorry, just above that, we've also got mention of Eton College. But it says here, in 1991, he succeeded his father as Earl of Cromer, Viscount Errington, Viscount Cromer and Baron Cromer. As a member of the House of Lords from 1991 to 1999, he is not recorded as having ever spoken there. Very interesting. On the 25th of October 1971, Baring married firstly Plern. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Unusual surname. Don't know where it's from. Should have found that out. It would be quite interesting. A daughter of another person here. They were divorced in 1992. 1971, just going back there, is the date of the World Economic Forum starting. Okay, 1971. This is probably very, very relevant, and I'm finding a lot of connections going back to the year when the World Economic Forum was started. Reading on, in 1993, he married secondly another person, Shelley Hu Chang Yu, daughter of another person here, with whom he has 2 children. They were divorced in 2019. Interesting, the year that COVID outbreak happened. In 2022, the year that I'm starting to expose this, he married somebody else. As of 2024, he had lived in Bangkok. Okay, so he's moved to Bangkok as this fraud is really being exposed. So, other research here. The Earl of Cromer is a title in the peerage of the United Kingdom, held by members of the British branch of the Anglo-German Baring banking family. Okay, so we now have an Anglo-German connection. But look at this. It was created in 1901, the position for Evelyn Baring, 1st Viscount Cromer, long-time British Consul General in Egypt. Okay, this is so important. So not in 1901, we have this position is created for this person who is from Egypt. Okay, who had this position in Egypt. We have an Egypt connection. If you look at my other research in one of my other documents, which is the document that I've created for the research around Julian Assange, you will see that there was a Faroan movement in the 1920s and 30s. Okay, so there was this movement which it appears could have started from this. And that movement suggests that they have been trying to push for the Egyptian, I suppose, a renewed movement in the Egyptian belief system. Now, I suspect we're looking at a potential doomsday cult Pharaoh and Egyptian origin. All right, and you can look at the research on Julian Assange that suggests that he may have been part of a doomsday cult, and he was released as this was all being exposed. Okay, go and look at the research documents, please, for Julian Assange and the videos that I've done in relation to it. But we also have a connection to America here. The first Lord Cromer was the son of Henry Baring, third son of Sir Francis Baring, 1st Baronet. He was succeeded by his son, the 2nd Earl, a diplomat and civil servant. His son, the 3rd Earl, was also a diplomat and served as British ambassador to the United States between 1971, when the World Economic Forum started, and 1974. In 2010, the titles are held by the latter's son in the 4th Earl, who succeeded in 1999. Now, there are multiple connections. You will see when I do the videos in relation to my first Lucy Letby document, you will see further links to Switzerland and to the apparent Faroan origin in this, and the creation of the Freemasons coming from that. Back into the Schroeder company, we have Stephen Whitaker, and he's linked to Aviva Life and Pensions. Okay, Aviva has been featuring a lot throughout my latest research. Back into the Hakluyt company that we were looking at earlier, you have the Africa Foundation, Pulse Innovations, ESPN on the right there. ESPN has already featured in links to Disney. Back into Hakluyt, John Wisden and Company Limited. And within John Wisden, John Newton links to the International Institute for Strategic Studies. International Institute for Strategic Studies. We go into that. Okay, we've got Christopher Jones on the left, and he is linked to the British American Chamber of Commerce. Remember what we've just said about the connection to America, and now we have a link to the British American Chamber of Commerce. Back into the company we were looking at, the International Institute for Strategic. We now have a link. Ronald Cohen links to the Rothschilds Foundation, Hanadiv, Europe. Well, Hanadiv, we'll look at that in a second. Let's look at the company first. Rothschild Foundation, Hanadiv. See, it's started in 2000, the bottom left. Hanadiv Charitable Foundation till 2006. On its incorporation document, it has Farah and Co. That is the same company linked to Ghislaine Maxwell's companies. Okay, you can go and look at that on the World Trade Center Disaster Research document. Links to Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, she was a director for Oxford Football Club. There's some other links to some companies she was part of. She lived in Oxford with Robert Maxwell in a big house there. So what does Hanadiv mean? Well, Hanadiv makes the Jewish connection. Again, Hebrew, Nadiv means both generous and noble. Slightly different name. But this Hanadiv showing the connection to the Rothschilds on the bottom right there. An article from February 2024. Yad Hanadiv. About Yad Hanadiv. The name Hanadiv is Hebrew word for benefactor and is appropriate that through the foundation that bears his name. The Rothschilds Foundation. So the same director is linked to the Jewish leadership. And if you go back into the international company we were looking at, Ronald Cohen, you can see he's linked to Capital Films Limited. Here's Capital Films Limited. It's got an address on the left there of 1 America Square that features throughout the fraud. And the incorporation document appears to be forged. Look at that. It's misaligned. The lines around the company name are missing. I suspect that name has been added after the signatures to fit the narrative of this fraud. And the address does feature throughout the fraud as well. You can see 174 to 180 Old Street. Back into TJ Waste, you can see at the top left there, Ian Jacobs. So we're right back at the beginning now, just to show you some of the original evidence that I had. You've got Lovell International Limited. They had linked to the fraud from the World Trade Center disaster document. You can see they've got an address here on the left, Southampton, Hampshire. Okay, 1998 started. On the incorporation document, Swift Incorporations and Jordans. Swift Incorporations and Jordans, so it's part of the fraud. And Lovell's links to Moscow, in case you have another Russian connection here. Previous research, again on my World Trade Center document, Lovell's Limited links to Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, World Trade Center, but it's a Moscow company. On the left here, you've got King Spalding's also linked to Lovell's. King Spalding is linked to the head of the FBI, Chris Wray, via a news article, which I haven't shown, but he had an interest in King Spalding. On the right here, Lovell's, I've mentioned that actually already, thanks to the World Trade Center. And the same director that we're looking at here connects to Liverpool Port Auctions Limited. Remember, I've been told that there was a adrenochrome factories in Liverpool. This company here, it says Liverpool Port Auctions Limited, but the address for it, Unit F, West Quay Industrial Estate, is Southampton, Hampshire. It was incorporated in November 2000, and it was also Swift Incorporations and Jordans Limited. Back into Liverpool company, we've got Raleigh 2001, linked to that director, Richard Taylor. We've also got Autotrack Asia, Motorway Car Auctions, James K Motor Racing, Speedline Sport Limited. Bearing in mind, we'd already had the links to an apparent rally car driver. We then have all of these connections from the fire. So that came from the CYM evidence. We now have links to rally car driving through the fire. Same director is linked to PRM Waste Systems Limited. And they resigned in February 2023, and they are linked to Chettelbergs, which is also part of the fraud. Now, I was going to do a load more research on this, but I just haven't got time because the other stuff I've got to do. This is just to show you that the police report that I did put in on the 12th of July, so after the fire, I put this report into the police, and I'll read some of it to you. So this is screenshotted from the police report. Please tell us as much as you know about them, including, if possible, their names and physical description. This was about the victims. So I was basically trying to report all of the thousands of children. I've put thousands of children being held in detention centres around the world, many of which appear to be stolen from families in the UK and placed into trafficking system by the government organisations. The actual description of what's happened. Further to my previous reports of irrefutable evidence of decades-long international government fraud linked to the taxation system, now linked to the harvesting of adrenochrome appearing to be taken from tortured children. Evidence now shows a collusion to conceal this by specific individuals within my company, Export Manor Freehold Limited, Dorset Police, the monarchy and the government officials around the world. The latest evidence suggests a large fire in Portsmouth, Hampshire was possibly being used to destroy evidence of UK adrenochrome production, very likely drugs as well, with all of that other evidence that's been acquired. Just adding that bit, I suspect a further attempt is being considered on my life, involving the Mexican cartel, involving the human drug trafficking and worldwide drug distributions. That was because somebody who I was suspected to be linked to the Mexican drug cartel had specifically come over to England. All government organisations are completely ignoring verifiable and documented evidence of this, which you will find evidence of in the following links. I've sent the public document file. They have since hacked that somebody has hacked that public document file. I couldn't gain access, so I've had to create a new one. Luckily, all the documents have all been backed up in various locations by myself and others. International governments under a one world order now appear to be considering using directed energy weapons integrated into communication systems around the world to harm the general public who may oppose child trafficking. It also appears that they are expediting a move to full digital currency control to ensure this criminal system causing unfathomable suffering to children cannot be stopped. People cannot now lawfully pay their taxes or bills until a suitable safeguarded taxation system is in place to ensure that it does not facilitate this criminal system. Suspect details and full documentary evidence can be supplied on request. You can all be saved through this evidence. Kind regards, Gary. I have had no contact at all from the police since any of these reports. Here's that reference number. And in fact, at that very same day, as I said earlier, the 12th of July, my whole YouTube account was removed completely. So I've had to do a new YouTube account. Everyone needs to understand the severity of this. Get behind this, please. I urge you. International strike. We are running out of time. We can change this, but we need the masses. If we don't, then these people will presume that we are consenting to whatever they're planning. Full enslavement, potentially depopulation. We need to stop this whilst we can. God bless you all.